Hello, everyone. I hope you're well. I'm sorry for keeping you waiting an extra minute or so than we normally would there. We've had lots of fun and games in the green room, getting a few things to work. So already our guest is an absolute champ for tolerating last-minute technical issues. Hope you're all well, guys. I hope you can hear me. I haven't had a chance to do some of the usual checks that we would do, so I'd appreciate any feedback in chat just to reassure me that everyone's coming get me through loud and clear. And how was your weekend been, guys? How was your weekend been? If you haven't been here before, welcome. It's great to see you. We do get lots of first-time visitors as we cover different topics every week and have different guests every week. Generally, we are here most Sundays at 7 o'clock UK time. That does depend. We are people with chronic illnesses, so that does depend on that. Sometimes I might get sick, sometimes our guests might get sick, and then obviously we have a lot of advocates and we're all doing various things and everything else, so sometimes it's not always possible to to commit to a weekly schedule, and we won't ever apologize. I will apologize for that because I'm British and that's all we do, but we won't apologize for it, given that that is the nature of the beast of what we're covering here. So welcome in, guys. Welcome in, Shelley, on Facebook. Guys, if you are on watching us on Facebook, do say hello. Just be aware, guys, the usual thing to point out that when we bring our guest on, to keep everybody safe, we take the chat off screen, so you'll only be able to chat with the people you are watching it with on that particular platform. So as you'll see, most people are watching us on YouTube. Welcome, everyone. So if you want to carry on the chat, and it doesn't have to be related to the interview, you're not being rude, we're a peer support community, guys. Please do lean on each other, check in on each other, ask how you're going, share your stories, talk about your lived experiences, whether that's relevant to the topic we're covering tonight. It's ultimately what we start this all for initially, before we started bringing guests on. So it's not rude if you're in chat talking about other things, guys, please do. And if you want to keep that going, then just bear in mind, once our guest joins us in sort of 5 or 10 minutes, that we will be taking the chat off screen. It stops somebody coming in and ruining it for everyone, but you will be able to carry on talking to those who are watching on your platform. Welcome in, Sophia. Lovely to see you. Snuffle, welcome in. Lauren, I've missed you, Lauren. I feel like we haven't had a catch up in ages. So for those of you that are already members of our Discord community, our awesome Discord community, a lot of people in there that use computer gaming and things like that to distract from their pain and whatever it is they're dealing with, their long-term health condition. Feel free to scan that code there or grab a screenshot if you're watching on your phone to get it later. We've been in voice chat most of this week, I think, me and Nia. Welcome in, Nia. And that's been great fun. It's certainly helped me with a very rough week. For those that follow me on social media will know that it's been a challenging week, to say the least. But on more positive news, big shout out to Near Cheeks, who completed their first running event today, 10K. Big congratulations to Near Cheeks in chat, guys. I think it's fair to say that if you had said to me, well, we've been together nearly 16 years now. For anyone that don't know, Near Cheeks is my wife. She moderates all this. She's keeping everyone safe in the background whilst putting Dylan to bed, whilst looking after the dog and doing all the other amazing things that she does. If you'd have said to me 16 years ago when we met that she would be running, I don't think it's cruel to say I would have laughed. Do you, Nia? I don't think that would be cruel. So welcome in everyone who's here for the first time. We've got brilliant Angela Gibbons joining us tonight, so I look forward to that in a few moments. And like I say, if this is your first time here, guys, we are a peer support community. We're here to help each other. The whole reason we exist on a Sunday night was, the initial idea was that we for anyone that was maybe dreading Monday like I do, with my long-term health condition, I find I work all week only to be in pain all weekend, and then come Sunday night I'm miserable because I'm worrying about what Monday brings, or I feel like I didn't make the most of my weekend because I spent it recovering, etc., etc. So we started this space to have conversations, to support each other, hang out with people that get it, that you don't have to make excuses to if you can't make it for a couple of weeks, or you don't have to apologize, if you have to cancel, and all them sort of things that we encounter with chronic illness every single day. So that's what we started as. We started as a peer support community first and foremost, and then we started sharing people's lived experience. I realized there was only so many times I could share mine, and I'm very grateful for the opportunities I've had to share my story, but there are only so many times I can share mine. I bore myself with it already, so we started doing this to share other people's, and then we've had brilliant people, like I see Barry in chat. Welcome in, Barry. I hope you're good. And obviously we've got Angela tonight, to raise awareness, but ultimately we are a peer support community, guys, so please do use chat, please do lean on each other. If anybody needs any support at any point tonight, then please let us know in chat and we will signpost you as best we can. and I'm going to need tea tonight because it's been a hell of a couple of weeks. So we'll launch a charity, me, Near Cheeks, Snuffle. I'm having to use people's handles, which feels very informal. Cinny, so lots of people that you see in this community have launched a charity the last 2 weeks. So it's been exhausting. That went a lot more mad than planned. I was expecting us to just bumble along for the first year and then maybe we could do some work and start having an impact, and no, we've gone straight in at the deep end, and it's terrifying. So thank you for everyone's kind messages of support. Thank you for everyone that's helped us reach people about that. The fact, that one of our community members, Philippa, wrote an amazing press release for us, and it's because of her that we've had the attention we've had already, and I've got to go on the radio in the morning. I'm terrified about it. I talk rubbish to you lot every single Sunday, but I'm terrified when I have to actually represent other people. So wish me luck for that, guys. So thank you for everyone that supported us, and sorry we've just been a little bit unreliable with all the schedule stuff. For anyone that's used to watching us on Twitch every week or us being here every week, there's only so many hours in the day, but we're making it work the best we can, and you guys are amazing, because every time I feel like I can't do it, or I've taken on too much, or I've bitten off more than I can chew, you guys remind me why we do it, and sort of fill up my cup. So I really appreciate it, guys. I hope I haven't missed anyone dropping into chat. I think I've grabbed everyone who said hello. I did spots for it. Yeah, I think I've got everyone. And if I've missed anyone, guys, I apologize. It's purely because I'm trying to look at about 3 screens at once and juggle everything. So like I say, we will bring our guest in now, because I feel like I've kept them waiting long enough and we are a minute or two behind. So the usual rules apply here. We kill the music. That wouldn't make for a very good video afterwards. We take the chat off screen shortly. And like I say, if anyone misses this or can't stay for the whole sort of 40 minutes or so, as soon as we go off air tonight, around about 8:15 UK time, the whole thing, warts and all my mistakes and everything, will be there for everyone to rewatch on the YouTube channel. And in another sort of couple of months, you'll then be able to get it on the podcast feed. Just search Joel Nelson wherever you listen, and watch it on this YouTube channel, as well as an edited, well-wrapped video. Oh, just before I was about to bring our guest in, welcome back, Selby. It's been too long, mate. I hope you're well. Always here if you need us. Yeah, it's great to see you back in chat. That makes me smile, and I hope you're good. Right, guys, I feel like I've waffled for far too long, so let's do something about that. So tonight, guys, I'm delighted to bring in a fellow advocate, somebody that I had the pleasure of meeting in person, albeit abroad, which is a bit weird. We're not met actually on UK soil yet. But patient advocate, research partner, and founder of the HS Support Network UK and Ireland. Hopefully, with a bit of luck, Angie, you can see and hear me after our earlier issues.
I can. Hello.
Thank you so much for joining me. And first of all, can I just check? Would you prefer to be called Angie? Because I've been using Angela, I think, until I just saw your name on screen. So.
Either or.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. And usual stuff. If anyone who's watching this live in chat can let us know, they can hear Angie absolutely fine, because I say we did have a couple of issues earlier, but I think it says a lot about the resilience of people like us, and that we find workarounds like we have to every day with our condition. So anyone who hasn't come across your work or yourself on social media or anything so far, do you want to just give us maybe a sort of an overview of who you are, Angie, and then we'll deep dive into the advocacy stuff.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I've seen some familiar names in the chat, so thanks, guys, for joining. For those who don't know me, I am a person who lives with hidradenitis suppurativa. I've lived with this condition since I was 10 years old. So we're nearing on 35 years of living with. And I'm involved in lots of research projects, patient advocacy, and I set up the support network where we offer monthly virtual peer support and also education. So we have kind of guest speakers that come along. And I guess tonight I have a lot of questions and themes, both in the group and personally, about how we better advocate for ourselves on a personal level as patients, but also how you get involved in some of the work. So hopefully tonight we can explore both of those things, and really good to be here, Joel. Thank you. Oh, Joel, I don't know whether it's sound on
Oh,
your
there we
end,
go.
but I
That was
can't hear
me.
you.
No, that was me. That was me. Like I say, I've had a bad week, and I pressed the wrong button. So after everything we had earlier, Angie, it was me that let the team down. So sorry about that. I was basically saying, thank you for joining me, and if nothing else, just for an opportunity for me to reuse my knowledge of learning hidradenitis suppurativa after we had Barry on, because that took me hours to get that right, and
Yeah.
I've been able to reuse it. So thank you for that.
You're
So
welcome.
so in terms of like should we start with your sort of health journey, because like, you know, as you've sort of hinted at there, not everybody starts advocating from day one, and we all have to find our own way, and many of us have quite a long road to that. I know I certainly did. So do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about your health journey, and feel free to go into as much detail as you're comfortable with, and we'll go from there.
Okay. So HS, just for people that don't know, might be new to the call, it's a chronic inflammatory skin condition, painful swollen lumps that can leak, break open, fluid, pus, and you find them in areas of your body. I think the best description would be everywhere you wouldn't want something. So anywhere where there is skin to skin contact, and mainly those kind of pivot points which are crucial for mobility, so underarms, between legs, seating area, breast, really difficult places to deal with. And there are 3 stages which go in an obvious kind of stage 1 onset to stage 3 being the most significant impact. So my journey was quite common with lots of other people, in the fact that the onset was adolescence. So I was 10 years old, taking a bath, noticed something around my groin, a lump. Um, and I'm quite a private person. I tend to keep, things to myself, and I kind of really worried about what this was. And at 10, your body's really starting to change. You're kind of reaching those teenage years. I was carrying weight that made me a bit more embarrassed about my body. And I just didn't know who to talk to. I just felt real shame and embarrassment. And I worried, have I caused this? And I actually waited until I was 16 to go and see a doctor. I thought that at 16, a doctor wouldn't be able to tell anyone else. So I kept it quiet for 6 years. That had a big impact on things like days I couldn't attend school, and masking and trying to think of reasons to tell my family and friends or teachers, why I wasn't at school. And if I'm really honest, those 6 years were it just had such a significant impact because I didn't know what was wrong. So after that first lump, they just continued, and they started in new places in my body. And at that time in the 90s, lumps in your body, sort of underarms and in these
Yeah.
areas, for me, I thought, well, this must be cancer. This is what everyone, cancer starts with lumps. And as a child, I think that's important to kind of note with this condition. You don't have an adult's cognition. You don't have our experience, our brains. We think differently. So I was really worried. And unfortunately, the doctor's appointment at 60 was a really negative experience. The doctor had no awareness of the condition. There was certainly some shame and blame of, how often do you wash? Misdiagnosis, let's check for diabetes, which are all too common in the HS community. And when I described that this was recurrent, that wasn't really picked up upon. And so I went home, I went away, and I just thought that was such a horrific experience for me. I'm never going to go back. And I think, again, what's quite unique about HS is because of those areas, when you're examined, you're literally asked to be completely naked, because there isn't, like, so it's bottom half, top
Yeah.
half, everything off. And obviously I hadn't had a boyfriend, I haven't had cervical screening, I hadn't had labour, no one had seen my body. So that for me was, a terrifying experience. It's what I dreaded most. And just going through adolescence, going, I don't know what this thing is, having to stop playing sports, that missing school, the mental health really taking it, and the secret, the burden of living with something that you're constantly trying to hide. We worry about strike through from an area bursting, and somebody seeing that. I know Barry talked on the show about his first experiences in school. And so another theme I picked up actually for other speakers on your show is that it was at university.
Oh, that
Things,
comes up so much.
yeah.
Well, that was my experience as well. It really comes up so often, and it is obviously a big defining thing, but it's amazing how much long-term health conditions just blow up at that point as well.
And I know you'd said at the time it'd be interesting to look more into that. I don't know whether it's stress related. So you're under significant stress
Yeah,
for kind of academic achievement, but you're also, meeting new people in new situations. It's, independence. You really kind of getting to grips with all of that. So I was just incredibly lucky that I had to revisit a GP that happened to be a locum derm and said, I think I have a name for this. She wrote it down on a post-it note and said, I'll refer you to dermatology. And I remember that day walking out and just feeling overwhelmed, just being like, wow, this is a condition. I do have
yeah.
something. This isn't something I've been
I,
doing
I
wrong.
just, I just want to pick up on that because that is exactly the same overwhelming sort of feeling I had in that I'd been gone so long without a label. I kind of felt a fraud by that
Yeah,
point. So then
yeah,
you get an answer, and I didn't really know what to do with that information. You know what
yeah.
I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the overriding feeling from that was great. I'm gonna get fixed, get me to this dermatologist. Let's see what we can do. And again, I think still that kind of teen adolescence thinking of I have a diagnosis, I'll go to the doctor or the hospital and they'll give you something that will
Yeah,
fix things.
yeah,
So there was a huge journey then, of having, coming to terms with there isn't a cure for this. We can't just fix you. And that was, I guess, the step of a next journey. But still at this point, I haven't told anyone at all.
no,
So it'd been 11 years and I just kept quiet. I just made excuses about going on holiday, swimming, or not having relationships, or I just did everything and anything I could to mask that there was anything wrong. And probably went overboard on trying to be glamorous, or the clothes I wore, or other things, just to try
yeah,
and kind
yeah.
of divert from, is there something wrong with you?
I
So
can
yeah,
relate
that's
to
the kind of
so
first stages.
I can relate to so many bits you're saying there, and things like the first time being seen. Now, 'cause I was the same. They used to wheel in a load of student doctors to poke and prod me, but you were doing it with no clothes on from the waist down, and I was sort of 12 to 14 years old. And it's just uncomfortable, and but the one I really wanted to go back to was like the hygiene thing, because as a teenage boy with psoriasis, it was exactly the same things that were thrown at me, that you need to wash more, or you need to do this, or you need to do that, and people don't appreciate the mental impact that has and how it can also stick with you for life. So now, like, sorry, and this isn't about me, but I'm just trying to give an example. It's like, as somebody with something like inverse psoriasis and them similar areas that you can get HS, and I think that's why HS sort of like resonates with me. Now every time I have a flare, I think I smell. And and you don't get that so much with psoriasis, like maybe perhaps other conditions, but it's because at some point a doctor planted that seed
Hmm.
that it was hygiene.
Yeah, and you feel, you know, as someone coming to terms with this, you feel dirty. You feel, as a child, you see what's happening to your body, and as a teen, and it doesn't feel good. You initially feel quite disgusted with what you might see. And I think the nature of HS also means that some really simple things that we take for granted on a hot day, you will wear deodorant, you put perfume on under your arms. You can't do that if there are chronic open wounds. You
Yeah,
will wear in hot weather sleeveless dresses, shirts, tops. You won't do that with HS, and you really struggle to get dressings to stay on in the heat. So there's lots of things that build into that, and lots of people in the HS community do report an odor from their HS areas. So there's a very real, it's a balancing act, because you would also say, do you know what, you wouldn't find a cleaner person. I
yeah.
shower multiple times a day. And I couldn't be any cleaner. I'm always changing
No,
my
I imagine
clothes.
you
I'm always
overcompensate a little bit, don't you? Because I
and
know
that's
I
what I
I
mean.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
it's a
And I just
balance.
think it's a really important point, because, like I say, I was really late to the party, and I was ignorant when it came to a condition like HS. It just wasn't on my radar, which we know is an issue. For it is not on a lot of people's radars, and especially medical professionals. Do you want to maybe just, so you've had the opportunity to talk a little bit about that regard, and how it just doesn't get diagnosed because it's not on their radar.
Yeah, so originally it was a 10-year diagnosis gap from people first presenting, finding symptoms to getting a diagnosis. That's recently come down to 7 years, which I think Barry touched on when he was on the show, that 50% of the research into HS has happened since 2020. So in the last 4 years, which is insane when you think this has been around since the 1800s. So I think there's an element of perhaps doctors having dealt with people in the past with HS, and almost them feeling a frustration that I don't have anything in my toolkit to give you. I've had patients with this, it's incredibly stubborn, it doesn't respond well to treatment. There's not a great deal I can tell you other than, go away and change everything about yourself. And I feel as though there's lots of missed opportunities. So for women, particularly around family planning, pregnancy, labour, cervical screening, breast cancer screening, that type of thing. And you wonder, they're all places that people might feel a bit embarrassed about, but we talk about them. You see national campaigns, there are national screening programmes. And quite often we get in our kind of support group and in every support community I've been in over the years is that anger and frustration from people to say, it has taken me this long for someone to finally say it's this, now I'm here. And everyone will say, same here. We are getting more people coming through now saying, I went to the doctors, I was referred to dermatology, I got a diagnosis. And that's really what we want, because people in those 7 to 10 years that people are living with HS, their HS, not everyone, but for many people, is progressing. The progression, of course, of the disease is real, and it moves from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3, not as a rule, but for many people it goes through that. So whilst you're waiting in the world of the unknown, this HS is forming, sinus tract formation under your skin, it's burrowing deeper, it's, the disease is really embedding, which means by the time you get to see someone and you finally have a diagnosis, you're probably going to be diagnosed first-line treatments, which are not going to touch the level of disease that you're living with. So it's frustrating because people talk about numerous misdiagnoses, is it sexually transmitted, is it diabetes, is it pilonidal cyst, is it, just this ongoing, could be this, could be that. And it's insane when someone says, it's hidradenitis suppurativa, been around since the 1800s, here's what we're going to do for you. That's what we're aiming for, to be similar to any condition, whether it's a skin condition or not, to be able to, to have that awareness. And I think there's lots of points, health points, touch points where people could be picking up on this, and it just seems crazy that it's not getting the attention it should have. Although I think it's fair to say that we are moving in that direction now. There's lots of interest, research, commitment. Just this last Wednesday, I did a webinar for the British Dermatological Nursing Group. And other organisations getting in touch to try and do more awareness with healthcare professionals, whether that's doctors, GPs, dermatologists. So it's happening, but at the moment it's an unacceptable length of time for someone to wait for support, and it just causes things to get much worse by having that wait.
And it might not feel progress when you're living it and buried in the advocacy side of it like you are, but I must admit, in the short time that we've known each other, it just seems to be on the radar now. Like, I'm not saying it is on the ground, like in terms of in doctors' offices and things like that, but in terms of like industry interest or what you see on LinkedIn or whatever that might be, suddenly it is a topic that is talked about after hearing nothing about it for most of my life. So you're doing great work. Don't take anything away from the noise you're making, because that's where it starts, isn't it? It's about drumming up enough noise for people to then ask questions.
It does, and that was the cold hard truth, that back in the day, in kind of the early 2000s, we were told that this was an orphan disease, not enough people suffered from it, and therefore pharmaceutical companies would not be investing the money to develop treatments. And this is an interesting one, Joel. Actually, I've got a really good example of kind of personal advocacy. I was under a surgeon. The surgery has become just part of my management, whether it's planned or emergency. And I had this particular surgeon who had what I would say in some ways was a typical surgeon's bedside manner. To put it mildly, he wasn't the best. And I said to him, well, what about this treatment? And what about doing this? And I've read they're doing this in America. And his write-up, when you get the kind of notes afterwards of the consultation, said, Angela remains delusional about hope for a cure for this condition. Jeez. And I remember sat at home and opening this letter and crying, like really sobbing and going, delusional. And I think it was probably my first really good example of advocating for myself. So I kind of quickly got online, drafted a letter that said, dear Mr. Surgeon, I was unaware of your mental health qualifications and the ability to deem
I'm
me
only
as
laughing
delusional.
because it's shocking. I'm not.
It's
I
funny that,
don't. I'm not
and you
taking
think
anything away from your situation.
delusion is a state of mental health. I didn't think as a dermatology surgeon you were in a position to label me as delusional.
And
Bearing in
and
mind
I've yet
this,
to find one that
yeah,
prioritises
this
the
will
mental
go on my
side of living with these conditions. Yeah.
yeah. But I was like, this is going on my record that I'm delusional, and I don't know why, but it just really struck a chord. It really
Hmm.
offended me that you'd made a statement or a judgment about my kind of mental state. And I said to him, but in this letter, with the greatest respect, in 1990 when this first started, there wasn't really any treatments, but since then, we have, at that point, I think we had infliximab, the first biologic that people were trying. There was a couple, combination antibiotics. I was like, none of these things had existed when I first started out. And I said, and I will make it my business in the next 10 to 20 years to do anything I can to make sure there are treatment choices. I said, I would really appreciate if you could strike the record of what you'd said. And
Yeah.
he wrote back, and what I said was, I said, what you're doing here is taking away hope, and hope is all I have. And I know that it's chronic, and I know that it's stubborn, and I know, but I have to believe that something is going to get better.
Yeah.
And bearing in that mind, my mental health was at an all-time low. Self-harm was an issue. Suicide ideation. I was really at rock bottom. So for somebody to take that hope away and say you're delusional, that anything is ever going to help you, it really kicked me into, well, hang on a minute, maybe that's not the case. Let me see what I can do about that. So
That's a
yeah.
really good point though, because like language is so important, especially when it comes to skin conditions and those sort of visible things that carry that mental burden, and it can make or break someone. Like it was essentially conversations like that that kickstarted my advocacy, but it took 10 months of me going down a really dark path before I got that fire lit under my belly to push back a
Mhm.
little bit. So I don't think people appreciate like how dangerous language like that is. And obviously it's been the making of everything you've gone to do, but it can so easily go the other way,
Yeah.
especially when we're already at, like you say, rock bottom when we're
Yeah.
having these conversations, aren't we?
Yeah. And I think I have to kind of pay dues to my friends, my family, for everyone around me for at least a decade. I was just angry. I was really angry at the way people were treating me. I was really frustrated that there weren't more kind of shared decision making or accountability. It was like walk into a room, someone will talk at me for 10 minutes about treatment options, probably berate my lifestyle and pack me on my way. And I was like, this isn't helping. Where's the conversation about how I'm managing open wounds? Where's the conversation about how I'm dealing with my pain? Where's the conversation about how are you?
Yeah.
I was like, I accept that we might not have some really great treatments, but nonetheless, I'm still having to live this on a daily basis. So I think it kind of just sparked a fire in me from being kind of this mouse in the corner of going, I'm sorry, please help me, to hang on a minute. And that had started when I'd started to resonate. I joined I think it was in 1998 maybe, an online Yahoo email based support group. It
Right.
was my
Yeah. Yeah.
first experience of meeting anyone with HS. And I was just dumbfounded that we all had the same experience, that we all felt as though we'd had some really negative interactions, and kind of been told to just get on with it. I had a really negative, my first dermatologist wasn't a pleasant person. And they just continued to just fire this messaging at me, that if you didn't do this and you didn't do that and you went away, just forgetting that this is an autoinflammatory disease. I
Yeah.
didn't catch this, I didn't cause this, I didn't, I happen to have this, and just like anyone else, I deserve some treatment. And I think that's become clearer as I've developed other comorbidities. The difference between being diagnosed with something commonplace, such as, say, diabetes, for example. You're immediately on a health awareness program. You have annual eye screening, annual foot screening. There's,
Yeah. Yeah.
treatment reviews. It's amazing. You
Holistic
just go,
care.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And you go,
Yeah.
why is this feeling so different? And I do acknowledge that for some of them, it's, the professionals are as frustrated as we are, and sometimes because
Yeah.
we're so affected and upset by this, we also go in with some of that anger and frustration. And I get how that, we don't end up working in partnership. So yeah, things are changing.
It's like turning the Titanic, but it's getting there. And but I wanted to just ask you, is like, how did that? And I'm going to try and ask this in a non-leading way. Is like, how did that relationship with that dermatologist early on shape your relationship with your condition, like the way you perceived it? And yeah, I'd be interested to know.
Hugely. I think because at that point there was very little information available anywhere else. So she was my guru, she was my font of knowledge, and I would really just hope and wait to have this 10 minutes with this woman that I knew was just not going to be very nice to me.
Yeah.
And I took that away with myself. I was a bit like, well, yeah, you know, and that's the cycle I think that HS gets you into. You have a condition that is incredibly painful, that's in these pivot points that affect your mobility, and there's nothing you can do about it, and your mental health becomes lower. So then things like, yes, I might comfort eat, or you get into this cycle where they'll say, well, you should just go swimming. Swimming, I don't know why, but swimming is something they love to recommend. And I always
Every rheumatologist does as well.
do they? Is it a common
Yeah.
thing? So it just makes me think. I think, are we in the same room here? Are you aware that I've chronic open
Yeah.
wounds in all of these places, and actually going into public and going into
Yeah.
work? Like there couldn't be anything worse you could suggest
Yeah,
for
it's
me.
the same with psoriasis, and the fact that do you really want to be dipping yourself in chlorine when you got psoriasis?
Yeah, no, it's good. It's like gentle exercise. It'll be good for you. It's like, what? Sure, you're
Yeah.
talking to someone behind.
Yeah.
So it gets really frustrating, and you carry that home. You just think, and the difference is, I think I ended up again going, I'm just not going to keep seeing this woman. In my head, she was probably the only dermatologist in the region, and I had to see her. And I got to this thinking of,
Yeah.
I don't want to see her. And I wrote a letter, and I just said, I've read some things. I've read that I haven't caused this. Yada yada yada. And I don't want to see this consultant. Is there any other consultant I would be able to see? And the next thing I knew, I just had a letter that said you're scheduled with this consultant. And it wasn't until I saw what good looks like. I mean, I knew it didn't feel good what was happening, but it wasn't
Yeah.
until I actually got someone who was genuinely interested and educated and aware of HS that I realised how bad that first experience had gone. And I think that's probably one of my main messages at the time when I wrote back to the surgeon and I wrote back to say I want a different consultant. I felt like I was the problem. I felt like I was being mouthy and difficult, and I just couldn't accept what was happening, and it was all all on you, and you kind of do that ruminating of not a good person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have to say that from all of it, it improved my care.
Right. Yeah.
Getting to a good dermatologist, knowing that delusion isn't an issue I need to
No.
worry about.
What a
Um,
terrible word to use.
but it all served a purpose. It all got to the point where I've been working with this dermatologist now for, I don't know, the last 20 years, and he's brilliant. It's absolutely great. And
Yeah.
I email him in advance and say, I've heard of this, I've seen that. Can we talk about it? And you go into clinic and be like, that's only available in America. That's not for you as a woman of childbearing age, or this we might try next. And it was great. It was a completely different experience. So I think that's one of the things we try to advocate for in group. When people come to the support group and talk about having had a negative experience, it's, did you call it out on the spot? If you didn't feel able to do that, can you do that retrospectively, maybe to a practice manager or a depart service manager? And what next? So we absolutely appreciate it's been a really bad experience, and we know that people feel angry and frustration, but none of those emotions necessarily serve us or them. It doesn't get us to a place. So you know, that focus on, well, what next? What will I do differently? Can I see someone else? Can I call it in? Can I have another conversation about that? And it's our right to do that, because we know that bad practice exists, and
Yeah.
whether it's intentional or unintentional, it happens. And I think it's really sad that people with chronic illness, sometimes feel like we have to jump up and down and scream for things, and it is frustrating.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's work we have to do. We want to change that, but as it is, it's a reality.
And it's important that you have that voice and you call it as well, because like one of the things I've found from transitioning to a patient very much in a similar position to yourself, I didn't know what I've never had an assigned dermatologist ever. I couldn't tell you what my dermatologist is called, even though I've had psoriasis since I was a child, because everyone focuses on the arthritis side. And it took being an advocate and going abroad to see what good care looks like. It's mad, to meet amazing dermatologists and have them asked to come on this show, and okay, so that's what it should look like. But then I find when you get into advocacy, you sort of cross this line where you've got to try and partner with everybody, and there's all the politics, and you've got to try and be diplomatic to get people around the table, but you're still a patient and you're still representing patients. So I'd be interested, this wasn't on my list of questions, it's just because you mentioned there that, you know, the whole, you know, having a voice. How do you tackle that one? Because that's one I'm still very much learning, from going the banging fist on the desk kind of patient to trying to get them to listen and easing them into the conversation a bit more.
Yeah, I think it's about finding that common ground, isn't it? I think like I say, therapy really helped me. And a lot of people that come to the group who are struggling with their mental health will say that generic therapy hasn't always helped them. But I'll say the biggest thing in my journey to kind of helping myself and helping others has been acceptance, which came through having cognitive behavior therapy, you know, practical coping strategies, and just realizing that my anger and my frustration, like I say, so acknowledge it and say, you know, I have every right to feel angry and frustrated, but actually how that impacts on my behavior and how I'm speaking to people. And I recognize I've become very defensive and quite argumentative. And like I say, I'm very thankful for the people that loved me around me at that time for tolerating kind of just how angry I was about everything.
I think all of us that have gone on a chronic illness journey have got people we're thankful are still sticking around.
Yeah, but
I know
it's
I
turning that around though, Joel, as you say, you kind of have to go there in order to kind of come out the other side and recognize that actually of all those bad interactions, the outcome was never good. The outcome was always, well, it's all a mess. So I think really switching my perspective and kind of recognizing my feelings and how they affected my behaviors, and going, well, actually, I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. I don't want to be deemed one of these patients that I hear doctors talking about, or I don't necessarily want to continue, I guess, fighting against something that isn't an open door. So looking for the opportunities, like we often talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, kind of, you know, who's willing, and in a room, let's start with them.
Exactly. You've only got so much energy.
Yeah. And we have it. We have, certainly there was an international piece I worked on that was about developing the outcome measures that they use in clinical trials. And it was really great work, because what they said was, doesn't matter if we develop a drug that we think works, the outcome measures have to be from a patient. Like, what is it that you would say, oh, that treatment worked, like what's the difference? And it was great work. And there was a very well-renowned kind of HS specialist in the room, and it was a consensus process. So we were almost, it felt like we were locked in a hospital room in Vienna with patients from around the world, surgeons, dermatologists, academics, and we're all in this room thrashing it out as to what's important and what's not. And there was a very heated discussion, and I would imagine everyone who kind of tunes into this will recognize lethargy, tiredness, as part of any chronic condition. And people saying, I just don't have the energy. I can't describe to you that this isn't just about something on my skin. This is a general malaise, sometimes fever, feeling sick, but the exhaustion. And I think that's the relentless nature, isn't it? I've had a couple of people have things recently, you know, like what's that, sciatica. I had a really good friend with sciatica, and she said to me, Angie, it was the worst 3 months of my life, like the places it took me mentally, because the pain wouldn't stop. And she was like, I just want to say, you know, I don't know how we've coped with this. And it is that relentless nature. Anyway, whilst we were debating that, the professionals were saying that lethargy shouldn't really be a benchmark for an effective treatment, and I'm kind of very passionate at this point about it. There's a picture of me kind of with my arms up in the air, like really animated against this like absolute expert, and then it's been used again and again. Like, people, please stop showing it.
I know.
But it was that thing of the patient voice is king in these types of events, and that's what I kind of recognise, that when we're welcomed around the table, I feel like we've moved from a place of that being a tokenistic, when we have patients involved, to actually much of the work I'm involved with at the moment, your voice will be the overriding factor. So if there's something that's in dispute, they will turn to and say, well, let's ask the patient to see what they think. And I think that's been a big shift in advocacy. And it's come from those people who have been advocating, being so passionate, doing that work. So, yeah.
And that does really come across, like, just to you know, so you know it does because when we first spoke many months ago, you know, that was the real sort of thing I walked away from, how you were so patient-led, patient-focused, patient voice is king kind of thing. And up until that point in my advocacy journey, I hadn't met that many people. It was either all about either sharing stuff on social media or doctor bashing. There wasn't a lot of like collaboration, and that really comes across with yourself. So yeah, I just wanted you to know that, because I feel sometimes when we're doing this advocacy, it can feel like we're banging our head against a wall a lot of the time. So it does register.
Good.
The other thing I wanted to mention there is, like you touched upon earlier, you said like about comorbidities and diabetes and things like that, and I don't know what your experience is with HS, but within the psoriasis field with dermatologists, no one's referring me to the things that really helped me: CBT, pain management, worry management, all these other sort of things that I had to kind of find myself. Have you sort of found that with something like HS, where, and this is just off the top of my head, where it's not maybe getting picked up in doctor's office or primary care or anything like that, is the comorbidities a route? There's more mature services, like you say, with your diabetes monitor and things like that. Is that potentially a route for helping raise awareness by going through those to go back to the root of the problem?
I don't know. I feel like what should be happening is that the dermatologists who are diagnosing their patients with HS should be screening at that point for comorbidities, but also having conversations with patients about what the research says. So this is evidence-based. And I know, again, when Barry was on the show talking about this, he talked about recent research which talks about a 15-year life expectancy gap for people living with HS. And that, for me, was really difficult to take and to absorb, and to realise that something which I thought was a skin condition, that it would have that level of impact on life expectancy. And I think that's why research is so important. So we have that now to talk to our doctors about, but we're questioning, why are those doctors then not asking those questions about, let's refer you, how are you coping with your mental health? How are you coping with weight management? There's lots of lifestyle conversations that doctors will tell me, we're just not trained in, smoking cessation or weight management. We don't really know how to approach those conversations. And they say, it isn't your job to fix this, but as a human to human, you can have a conversation with someone that doesn't leave that patient feeling blamed and shamed. So we get lots of people saying, so I came out and I, went and went to, buy a pasty and a packet of cigarettes, because that's how terrible they felt. It's making it worse. But asking the questions, or being, I guess, evidence-based, and saying to people, the reason why we talk about smoking in HS is because smoking will have a significant impact on the skin's ability to heal. There's some talk about efficacy of medication for smokers. Why we talk about weight management, it certainly isn't a cause, but it can aggravate some symptoms. What things have you tried before? Would it be helpful for us to do a referral to professionals to try and help you? The anxiety and depression, is really common, but we're just not asking those questions. And I understand it. I understand it would open an absolute floodgate. But for someone who's living with, sleep apnea, diabetes, hypertension, migraine, all of those things, I don't think there's anything I'd have from a health perspective that I don't believe the root cause is living with HS from. It's all linked, and it was all just add on, and you think, well, where does that go? And actually where that goes is into cardiovascular issues, which is where the life expectancy stuff happens. So, and that's why advocacy is so important. So within our support groups, we have an annual flyer. We ask patients what you want to hear about, and we bring in guest speakers who are talking about, so Dr. Eleanor Chapman, who linked us up, comes and does our session on
amazing
emotional
lady.
health and well-being, and her session is brilliant. We talk about lifestyle things in a really comfortable, informal way. And the thing with HS is that it's different courses for different horses. What works for one, you can have someone over here going, I did this with my diet and life is wonderful, and someone else tried that, nothing worked for me. So it's difficult for people to know what to do. But I think that's why it's important that we have those conversations, that you have a community like this, that we're doing a support group, because we're going to have to do a lot of this ourselves before other people start doing it for us. If we can get to that point where it's like diabetes, people do all that great stuff, we'll have that will be an achievement for us. But until then, we need individuals to be talking. Rheumatology is a really classic example, Joel. So
Yeah.
lots of people understand with HS that their kind of MSK pain is linked to the fact that we as HS patients, people with HS, sit differently, stand differently, sleep differently. We're
Yeah.
always accommodating some level of
Yeah. And
inflammation.
that offsets to an issue somewhere else, doesn't it?
And you just think, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
limping a bit today because of this, or maybe it's my medication, and actually we're not going to the doctor and saying, getting some quite significant joint pain here. And actually now the research is suggesting, they're really closely linked.
Yeah.
Comorbidity with arthritis. So, but it is going to take us talking about that and taking our kind of symptoms and what we're feeling in our bodies seriously, and not assuming that it's just all part of the same thing and that there's not much help out there.
It's that crossover though, why I've got such a soft spot for this condition and your situation, because like, as a psoriasis advocate, the similarities are massive. We're having the same conversations with dermatologists. We're saying, well, we know you've got 7 minutes, but why are you not asking me about how it makes me feel? Why are you not asking me about my mental health? Why are you not asking me about pain and all these other things? And it's always the same. We're not equipped to deal with the answer. And like you said earlier, it's we don't need you to fix it. You just need to refer it. And like back where I live, my part of the country, I know it's not the same everywhere, but they won't cross refer. So if I go to my rheumatologist, I'm seeing my rheumatologist next week, and my joints might be perfectly fine. I could be covered in psoriasis. I have to go back to my GP to get a referral, which is just mad when they're literally down the corridor from each other. So we're fighting for that multidisciplinary sort of joined up approach as well. And I think that's why there's such a real opportunity between the two communities, because psoriasis is further ahead in terms of investment and industry and treatment options and everything else. But we're still facing exactly the same issues when it comes to the pressure on dermatologists and how broken that system is at the moment. So yeah, maybe we should put our thinking caps on about that, about how we can, because it just feels like there's an opportunity there to raise that awareness of how you're only really looking at one issue in a list of maybe 5 or 10 things when we have those 7 minutes with them.
And I think that's the reality, though, isn't it? We know what kind of system pressures there are in the NHS. We know in life people are not just able to go private. I don't think, even though the answer to us seems really, really simple, you just think, I'm not sure we're going to get there. So in the meantime, let's equip people with the confidence, empower them with the knowledge to go forward, because even when you do go and ask, you're looking at least 12 months for most specialist referrals at the moment.
Yep. And no one's talking about it. I had this conversation with a journalist literally just last week when I said it was a 70-week wait for dermatology in this area, and she didn't believe me. Like, I can understand why she didn't believe me. And I was like, but no one's talking about it. There's no stories on it. No one's really looking at it.
It's a big part of our support group. We have a lot of people who've been referred who are waiting over a year. Unfortunately, the specialisms, kind of the HS clinics in the UK, are quite sporadic. There's a couple of centres which are known for being, really kind of proactive and multidisciplinary. Others are still waiting that over a year to go to a clinic where they're still not really getting the treatment and care that they need. And I think that's been a big part of our kind of working in partnership to push that, because within the support group, those people have nothing. They're not on any treatment, and it affects everything, relationships, family, employment. And that's all we can really do in the support group, is talk to people about, when you get that appointment, how do you make the best of that? How do you stress what the biggest impact is for you? I remember with my doctor saying, and how are things? And it was just because I was at the end of my tether. I said, my job, I'm going to lose my job. I've had too much time off. And immediately he said, I can write a letter to your employer. As far as I'm concerned, this is covered under the Equalities Act, and I think they should extend your absence triggers and talk about reasonable adjustments. And I've been a big advocate for that in the group and people that I speak to, because I think I deserve to be able to work, and I deserve not to just have a job, but I deserve to be able to aspire and achieve like anyone else. And I've really kind of fought with that. I've had, union representation, pre-legal tribunals, and places where they've said, please take this through, because if we win this, we get to change the rules for the whole organisation, which is affecting around, 300 people on capability or disciplinary. And it's about having those conversations. I remember saying to HR, I wish I had the confidence and it was appropriate for me to lie on the table in this meeting and to take my clothes off and to show you what I live with on a day-to-day basis. And if I could do that, I am guaranteeing you your tone would, change. And you can't fix me by giving me reasonable adjustments to be well and never take time off, because that was the angle was, so well, if we do this and this, you'd be okay in work. No, this will require time off, and when it comes to surgery, significant periods of time off. And I'm quite ferocious, because I just think feeling part of society and having an income and a livelihood, it's really important stuff. And too many people come to us in the network saying, I've lost my job, I can't get a job, I'm in trouble at work, and that really needs to change.
Yeah, and them conversations are so important, and it's something I think we touched upon, just to bring back to Dr. Eleanor Chapman again, like we talked about on there. It's like social media. I can't show my type of psoriasis on social media, and the amount of messages and things I get saying, well, you look fine for somebody with psoriasis, and that must be nice for you to do all this advocating when you're not suffering. It's like, I am suffering, but my account will get banned if I show you. So you can't depict the realities. But having those conversations with employers is so important, because, like, I found I went most of my life not talking about my condition. I was embarrassed. A bit similar experience to what you've had. Why I can relate to you and likes of Barry, who's been on the show, and others. But now I've started talking about that. My employer can start to understand how last week, or this week just gone, we've had a pretty stressful event gone on, and I'm now having a huge pain flare. I didn't do anything wrong. Previously maybe an employer would say, well, did you not manage it properly, or were you doing everything you should have been? That's like having a second doctor sometimes. But now they understand I had a stressful life event, and of course I'm now in a ton of pain, because that's how my condition works. But until you can get in a position where you can trust people and let the guard down and have those conversations, life is difficult trying to maintain a career with these things, isn't it?
Hugely, and I think that's the stigma, isn't it, that we have something which affects us in parts of our body that makes it uncomfortable to talk about. And I'm forever grateful, because there's an emerging army of people on social media who are showing their HS, and I'm just in awe of what they do. And I think that for everyone, just remembering that this is a journey, because I think I'm always advocating, I want to see the next generation of advocates and researchers, but I have to appreciate that this is a condition that really affects people in adolescence, early 20s, 30s, and at any age. But actually, at stage 3, I would never have been in a position to be doing this work. So there's a kind of a journey level, and it's all of those experiences going into work after being off, and someone saying, "Oh, you look well today." And just trying to come up with ways. What is it that's wrong with you? What makes me laugh is hidradenitis suppurativa is obviously a difficult thing to say and remember. And you'll know that people around you have maybe clocked on, they've put 2 and 2 together, they've found out things, and they'll ask you, and they'll say, and they think they're being really discreet by asking you, so what's the name of your and they'll drop it in and look, but it's the one thing you're looking out for, is protection. Like, I can't let people know this, and you kind of pick it up. But over the years, you just get more confident in kind of, I tried different ways, and now I say to people, I have an auto-inflammatory chronic condition, and when it peaks, it really affects my mobility and also can affect my mental health. And so, I'm feeling much better than I did yesterday, but every day brings some level of challenge for me. And people, you say something assertively enough, and that's the conversation over. That's what the full stop spells. But
I find that with sorry, I was just gonna say, I find that since I've been sharing my story for years now, and it still absolutely throws me, and I have this brief moment of panic every time anyone outside of my advocacy circle knows what's going on, because obviously I share so much and it's out there. So every now and then you'll get someone at work or someone through your hobbies or whatever will say, sorry to hear about X, Y, and Z, and I will literally instant cold sweats, and because you're still fighting that defense mechanism that you had for so many years, aren't you?
And I think that's my whole kind of onus with kind of coming on the show tonight, is that how did I deal with a condition that I didn't want to tell anyone about, but was affecting everything in my life? And actually, I used to really beat myself up that I wasn't so open. And I'd see people doing fundraisers on Facebook, and I think, I've got acquaintances from like school, and I don't want them to know the detail. And so I had to find a way of carving, how can I make a difference whilst kind of still being a little bit behind the scenes, and kind of doing other work that I feel really proud about. And the biggest thing in that was the kind of the mental health and the isolation. So kind of running the support network and that's leading us into registering as a charity, following in your footsteps. We
Oh,
did have
I
a
feel like
charity
I'm
for some
following in
time.
yours. You've been doing a lot of this stuff a lot longer than.
I was going to say, but doing that, but also kind of putting the messages out there, because we get a lot of people getting in touch saying, how do you get to do advocacy work? And kind of my messaging around that is that it's been decades of really hard work. It's been working full time, living with HS, but going the extra mile, putting my head above the parapet, contacting people, trying to get involved, and a skill set as well. Kind of speaking publicly, articulating things, and importantly being able to represent a community rather than just my own lived experience. And I feel like, having been in the group and listening, and people are being
Yeah.
brave enough to share, and that's why I kind of, flowers to everyone in the group for the fact that their sharing enables me to go away and talk about the
Yeah.
community voice
You can have your finger
authentically.
on the pulse, can't you? And that's
Yeah,
a
not
hell of
just
a
your
powerful thing.
experience.
Yeah.
And it's been, like I say, 35 years, at least 20 years in kind of forums and communities. So to understand how it might be different for people with skin of colour, or for trans people, or for, there's lots of intricate things. So I think becoming an advocate is part of having your lived experience, but a skill set. And I think you've touched on this in the past, Joel, but some of the really, really hard work, the planning, the travel, the time
Oh,
off work,
yeah.
the
I
the hard
still,
stuff
I
that
still get,
comes.
I still get a DM every time I'm in an airport that will say, "How can I be an advocate so I can travel?" And it just
Yeah.
every time make my blood boil. And I try not to sound like a miserable old man. Now I'm got a 4 in front of my age. But like, it is that, like, trying to explain to people that it's a long game. And we had a real issue of this in the pandemic, because lots of people started sharing stuff, which was amazing. And then they sort of started getting a bit obsessed with the numbers and how many followers I had on Instagram, and it kind of become his thing. And trying to get across to people, it's such a long thing, because there comes a point where people are looking to you, and it terrifies me as much as it's a privilege. And like, people are looking to you. People talked about Barry a lot. People look to him, and and there comes that point where you realize you are carrying that collective experience, and then you've got to do something with it. You can't just disappear because you decided to go to a different platform, or suddenly it wasn't fun to post pictures anymore, and this sort of thing. And you end up doing things when you're exhausted, because
Yeah.
you're on this mission to try and bring change. So it's a really hard conversation to have, because it comes up like
It
weekly.
is, and it's just having those conversations, because we want those advocates. We need a next
Yeah.
generation, but understanding there's a lot of reading, there's a lot of medical jargon, there's a lot of contracts, there's that work. It's amazing to meet other people from other countries and other patient advocates and leads in organisations. But by doing that, you're building a network of contacts. I've had the US people come to me to say, oh, these people are UK based, they're looking for something HS related. Similarly with industry partners, some work is paid, some work is not, but it's about building a reputation, and that happens over time. So having lived experience in a patient story is really crucial, and will always carry value. And everyone's advocacy journey will be different. But I think my experience has been, it's been a combination of kind of really, really hard work and trying to, fine tone some of that, capturing an audience, opening with something powerful, doing all of that sort of stuff. So, but I think wherever people are being advocate, whether it's for yourself or for your community, keep on keeping on. And it feels tough, because it is tough. That none of this toxic positivity. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Shout to the roof. It's
Yeah.
really, really hard.
Yeah.
Whether you're just advocating for yourself in the doctor's office, or you're in a
Absolutely.
meeting on behalf. And that's what I look for in our groups. I look for the people that are contributing, that are listening, that are sharing to others, that are really kind of dropping those messages. I'd love to be more involved. I do a lot of call outs for views on certain things we're working on, and it's the people that consistently engage with stuff that I think you'd make a really great community advocate.
That's superb, and that should be a brilliant place to end it. But I did want to just ask one more thing, in terms of, like, you've shared so much. I'm really grateful. I'm conscious of your time, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity to just sort of, like, really sort of sum up how advocacy has helped you, in terms of, we've talked a lot about what you do and the amazing stuff you're doing, and how people can get into that. But how has that helped you manage your condition? We've touched upon it a little bit, but I'd like to give you that opportunity just to really wrap up the change it's had.
Yeah, good question. It's taken me from, I guess, living with a real burdensome secret that I just couldn't see a way out of, and accessing therapy and meeting other people led me to these advocacy opportunities. And I think on a personal level, advocacy has brought me the treatment and care that I deserve and that everyone should be having. It kills me when I hear of these negative experiences and
Mhm.
nothing is done. People just need to be heard. I think we need action. I think that's what will change some of it. And the broader advocacy work, the kind of the benefits that it's bringing in terms of seeing other countries and kind of realizing it's that kind of karma, that swinging doors, isn't it? If you give something, you will get something back, and that by doing the advocacy work, it gives me hope that if, for example, a child in the next generation, one of my colleagues' children is unfortunate enough to be diagnosed with HS, my dream goal is that their experience is very different, that there is mental health support, that we have wound care, pain management, and effective treatments. And I feel as though the range of projects that I work on, I'm probably doing something for each of those, which just helps me go, okay, it wasn't there for me. I had an
Absolutely.
extremely long and tough journey coming to terms with things that was quite damaging, but I'm really proud to say that it is possible to get on the other side of that and go, couldn't fix it, but hopefully I will have done something that makes a difference for the next generation. Yeah.
Beautiful answer. Thank you so much. I was hoping you'd bring something out of your pocket like that. So thank you so much. And also thank you, despite all the technical issues we had before we went live that no one will ever see, and for sort of adapting. You're joining us on your mobile. I really appreciate you. Sticking with us and offering such amazing insight. And also, we have an amazing editor. Dan will make the podcast sound beautiful, so don't worry about that. But thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to just tell people where they can find either you or the group you talked about if they do want to get support or get in
Yes,
touch?
so we are on Facebook as the HS Support Network UK and Ireland. We're on Instagram as the _HS Support Network _ in between the words. Or you can email us hssn UK and Ireland at outlook.com. Really sorry, there wasn't many available names. We have a flyer that we can send to people. People just email us and you can book on anyone living with HS, caring for people with HS, and just really welcome the opportunity, because I think personal level of advocacy is critical, as is the broader stuff. And just really thank you, Joel, for kind of giving us, as a HS community, a platform to raise a bit more awareness, and hopefully for our HS listeners to have heard a bit more about the work and kind of how that happens.
Yeah, any time. Like I say, I have got a very big soft spot for HS. I see a lot of overlaps and similarities. We're fighting the same fight in many respects, albeit you guys sort of facing a bit. I think you're a bit further probably down on the mountain with that challenge in terms of like people just not really recognizing it yet. But you're doing amazing stuff, and I really appreciate it. And you're welcome back anytime, Angie. And yeah, thank you so much. And I will, for anyone, I should say, listening to this, the links for what Angie mentioned will be in the show description. For people that are watching this live, I'll pop them in chat shortly. So thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been so easy to talk to you, Angie. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, guys, let me get this all chat back up and everything. Guys, thank you so much for the lovely comments. I was trying to feature some at the same time, and then I realized I had buttons to press. So, like I say, I've had a bit of a rough week, so I'm not as professional as I normally am. But I hope you enjoyed that, guys. Thank you so much for the kind comments in chat. Let me just get caught up. Barry, thank you for your kind words, and it's always a pleasure having you around in the audience. Every time you speak, I listen. So I'm very humbled when you join us. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you very much, Sophia. Guys, if you haven't as well already, please do hit the follow or subscribe, depending on where you're watching, button so you get notified when we next come on. So the Chronic Pain Club is mostly every Sunday, but obviously, like I say, health permitting, that isn't always the case. Next week, sorry while my face lights up because this website hasn't got a dark mode that I'm using. But next week we have Dr. Catherine O'Leary, who's a clinical psychologist who lives with psoriasis. So we'll be talking about, very much following on some of the themes we talked about tonight, where we'll be talking about the mental impact of living with these conditions and the psychology behind it and everything else, which would be amazing. I'm really looking forward to that. Thank you for joining us, Amy. I saw you drop in during the interview, so it's great to have you. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Snuffle. Wow, Selby, I've never seen Selby still around at the end. Thank you, mate. I appreciate it. What a privilege. Lovely for you to join us. I'm sorry, I'm going to check. My screen is really small. Laurel, have I pronounced that right? Laurel Maria? Please do correct me if I'm wrong, guys. And also, I forgot to do at the start of the show, I normally get everyone to tell us where they're watching from. So if you want to drop in what country or part of the world you're watching from, please do let us know, because that always helps me in terms of knowing when to bring guests in from and get in touch with people. If anyone has already got the join-in link, as somebody we've had a conversation with about being a guest or whatever, please do use that to get booked up, guys. We have a couple of slots in November, and then we start getting very close to Christmas where things slow down a little bit. If you're watching this and you have got a story to tell, maybe you run a patient organization, you're involved in industry, you're a medical professional. We've had lots of doctors, dermatologists, researchers, psychologists and things on in the past that have quite unbelievably asked to come on the show, which is amazing, because we want to get everyone around the table to have those conversations. If you're watching this and you do want to get involved, guys, and be on the Chronic Pain Club one Sunday evening, do get in touch. Like I say, we have a couple of slots in November, possibly 1 or 2 in December, and then it all goes a little bit quiet until the new year. Have I got any admin? Normally it's where I tell you the admin, but I was so thrown tonight with the technical issues we had before we went live, I didn't have a chance to do my notes, so I completely winged all of that. Not that you could have guessed with all the audio problems I was having. But yeah, shock horror, I was winging a lot of that. So the living room, thank you, Near Cheeks. Bloody ha. Again, big shout out to Near Cheeks, who's run their first 10k today and is also moderating this live stream on multiple platforms whilst putting a 5-year-old to bed and dealing with a crazy spaniel who got attacked this week and has been feeling a bit sorry for himself. It's not been a fun week in this household, but we had some amazing achievements today, which was nice. And like I say, for anyone that's interested in the psoriasis side of things, I'm going to be on BBC Radio Norfolk tomorrow morning, I believe, talking about the new charity, which is Psoriatic Disease UK. You can find that at SOR.org, PSOR.org. We only launched it 2 weeks ago. The whole thing shocked me. I haven't done a video to tell anyone this, so for those regulars that are here, I might as well share it with you now. We were told it could take up to a year to get registered as a charity, so I was planning on that timeline. I was thinking, we can get our year of accounts, we can start looking at how we can get funding from industry and all this sort of thing. It got approved in a month. It went straight through. There was no follow-up questions, so our trustees did an amazing job, many of which are in the audience tonight. That went straight through, but then suddenly it was panic station. So now I thought, that's okay, no one will have any interest in a new psoriasis charity in the UK. I'm sure it'll be fine. And then we were on the BBC website and everything went a bit mad. So I'm sorry if I haven't been my usual, I was going to say slick self, but I don't think that really describes me at any point. But sort of semi-professional. I like to do things properly, you should probably know by now. And I don't feel I've been at that level tonight with the technical side of things. So I'm sorry if I've been a bit flustered, guys. I've been a little bit all over the place. I'm well and truly out of spoons. I'm trying to juggle the charity launch, the day job, Dylan, who's just a full-time job as a 5.5-year-old going on 16 at the minute. What did he say to me today? He told me I needed to chill out and take a chill pill in public, which was lovely. I needed to relax. Sorry, Dad, you need to relax and take a chill pill, which the other people in the restaurant found highly amusing. So I need to be more like Dylan, apparently. It's been busy. But bear with me, guys. We are trying to get everything sorted, and I will make some sort of announcement soon about what we're going to move and juggle around to make space. YouTube is the absolute priority in terms of away from the charity, just my personal advocacy. The YouTube channel is getting 30 to 40,000 views a month now, which just blows my mind. This time last year, we were lucky if we got 400. And we're getting 30 to 40,000 views a month since June, every single month. I don't know what's gone on. Massive thank you to all our guests and all the people that have contributed. We've been experimenting a little bit with things like shorts and trying to talk more about mental health and family life, and that seems to have helped as well. So YouTube's the absolute priority, but I will be doing some sort of post in the coming weeks about things we'll probably drop off. Things like the Patient Voice newsletter, because I'm now going to have a newsletter to write for a charity as well. I don't have time to write to. Maybe the odd Facebook support group that's died, a bit of a death, in place of new ones that are coming up. Twitch, rather than trying to stream 3 times a week and run myself into the ground to appease an algorithm, I'll probably just stream when I fancy it and when you guys feel like hanging out and need to just do it as a social event. But YouTube will be the priority outside of the charity work. So watch your space. And also Advocacy. Next month I'm going to Africa, which is, I don't like using the word mental, but I'm going to use the word mental because I can't find any other, I could say wild, but that doesn't feel strong enough. The fact that I've been asked to go to a conference in Rwanda is just bizarre. I still can't wrap my head around it, but I will absolutely make the most of the opportunity, guys, for the community. I'll take my camera and see what we can do, maybe my podcast and kit. I'm slightly terrified as well. My body really doesn't enjoy like 10-hour flights, but there we go. So yeah, that's next month. So there will be a bit of a gap in the Chronic Pain Club schedule next month while that happens. But what I'll try and do is make a video when I'm out there, and depending on tech and everything, see if I can upload something while I'm out there. But I might be a little bit exhausted, so we'll see how it goes. So I say next week, guys, Dr. Catherine O'Leary, if I just reach, we'll probably be talking about this, her new book. I don't really do adverts on this, but she's a medical professional and it feels appropriate. We're totally unsponsored, I should point that out. This is not an ad. This arrived in the post. We'll be talking about what it's like to be a clinical psychologist. I say clinical psychologist, I think that's right, because I got so used to referring to Dr. Eleanor Chatburn, who's a massive supporter of the show. But we'll be talking about what it's like to be a medical or health professional who lives with the condition of psoriasis, which will be amazing. It's also amazing timing with the launch of the charity. It's almost like we know what we're doing here. And then, like I say, we have got a gap or two, end of October and 1 or 2 slots in November. So if you're listening to this or watching this and would like to join us, you think you've got a story to tell or some good work or advocacy stuff to share with the world, get in touch and we can talk about it. Guys, I think I'm going to wrap it up there. I need an early night. It's been a hell of a week and I've got an early start again tomorrow. We've got World Psoriasis Day coming up in October, so expect lots of updates regarding projects for that. And until next time, guys, thank you to all the channel members. I'm terrible at mentioning them. I really should. I know Sai, Saduki, I think Rachel are channel members. If I've missed anyone, I will sincerely apologize personally afterwards. But thank you. We're a completely unfunded, unsponsored show. All this stuff you see here is funded by my wife and I. And we want to keep it that way. We don't want to be influenced. Thank you for everyone that's ever liked, subscribed, shared, told someone, turned up to watch their friend who was a guest, anything like that. It helps us massively. And I don't know what we did, but I feel like we're now getting those rewards for the people that we're reaching on YouTube. So thank you for everyone to support us. We even got sent a light. Look behind me. I can't bend my wrist. I've got arthritis. Yeah, this is hilarious. That way. We even got sent that light, even though my thumb can't really go that way, from YouTube. So we must be doing something right, guys. Thank you for all the support, all the love. I would not be behind a charity right now if it wasn't for you guys lifting me up and putting these crazy ideas in my head that we can actually help people by sharing stories. So thank you very much. Until next time, guys, I will see you soon. Bye bye.